Extroverts who ask others, "Why are you so quiet? What kind of response are you looking for?" I'm the quiet one and have asked my extrovert friend about this. For her, it's her anxiety telling her that I'm not taking because I'm mad at her. She is very uncomfortable with silence. We've both gotten better at being what the other needs in this regard. We have a mutual friend who is also an introvert, and we can sit and read for an afternoon and have a lovely time together, while the extrovert anxiously eyes us. This is a spectacular answer to a question where I assumed there was no logical reason beyond making someone feel publicly called out. I always worry that I'm talking too much. I have a tendency to dominate conversations when I'm not paying close attention and the other person lets me. Lloyd, this is an awesome reply. A lot of people assume extroverts are really shallow or lack some sort of ability to meaningfully connect, but a lot of them constantly worry if even one person isn't included in the gathering. Another question for extroverts: do you ever find it weird that someone is quiet? Whenever I am asked why I am quiet, I get the feeling that the other person thinks I am weird for being silent and observing. I find it hard to believe that it's for any other reason. Same here. I'm pretty quiet in group conversations, but still actively listening, and I find myself smiling, nodding, making whatever appropriate facial expressions a lot so people don't think I'm weird. My friends tell me I'm gonna give myself forehead wrinkles from raising my eyebrows so much. No, I'm not thinking it's weird. I'm just scared you're having a bad time. I'm the host that wants every single person to leave having a good time. And if you're not talking and socializing with everyone, I'm afraid I'm being a bad host. I usually approach in the way of saying something along the lines of, "I noticed you were sitting over here alone and was wondering if I can steal a few minutes to catch up." I believe I'm not alone in this aspect, and that for a lot of people, asking why you're so quiet is just bad wording for anything I can do to make you enjoy the gathering. I really value feedback on whatever I'm talking about, so if I get no reaction at all from my conversation partner, I assume they have no interest in what I'm saying. That makes me super uncomfortable and insecure. And yes, a point that is super often overlooked: extroverts can talk a lot and laugh a lot and be the life of the party and still be insecure or sensitive people. I masked a deep depression with jokes and small talk for years. Edit that said, "Why are you so quiet?" is a shitty way to try and engage someone in a conversation, and I don't believe I've ever asked this specific question. I've thought it, though. As a slightly extroverted person myself, I've never asked someone why they were being quiet. It can be weird to me sometimes when someone one know usually is outspoken stays silent. But for people I don't know well or know to be generally soft-spoken, I just let the silence stretch on. It's not weird, and when I feel uncomfortable with the quiet and nobody's in the mood to talk, I just put in my headphones. Music is great for filling an uncomfortable silence. I was raised by librarians. I like your accent. Where you from? Do you speak English to others? I'm a librarian. Can confirm. Now be quiet and no phone use inside the building. I'm an extrovert who has recently taught himself to listen more than speak. I'm a contractor, and I just knew that I had a tendency to dominate conversation and had to make the conscious effort to shut the fork up and listen to my customers. It has affected my entire life in a positive way. It's probably more profitable, too. Number 21. I remember a deleted scene from Pulp Fiction where Mia Wallace is asking Vincent Vega a bunch of questions that essentially amounted to a few "there are two kinds of people in the world. Which are you?" My favorite was, when you're talking to someone, are you listening to them or are you waiting to talk? Really sums up a lot of communication issues. One of my now close friends is very quiet and introverted. For years, I thought he didn't like me at all. Eventually, I figured out how to communicate with him. He's someone who actually thinks before he speaks, which is surprisingly rare. Like, you would ask a question and he wouldn't answer, so I would assume he was ignoring me out of dislike, when in all actuality, he thinks deeply about things before giving an opinion, so you may wait a few minutes in silence before he responds. Once I figured this out, we started to have a true friendship. Eventually, I figured out how to communicate with him. It's called sending memes. Quite efficient language. You can communicate the fact that you're thinking about the question. One of my favorite surgeons is very quiet. Story told about him by another surgeon when he was a resident. Resident kept trying to ask about his kids. His holidays, making chit-chat. Surgeon says, I'm comfortable with uncomfortable silences. End of conversation. One of my favorite coworkers was a guy that was equally comfortable sitting the next desk over in total silence for 4 minutes 6 hours at a time on the nights we worked together. It was so nice, going and knowing I wouldn't have to spend 15 minutes every hour or to trying to make small talk. Sad day when he left. I hope it wasn't because I asked him if he wanted anything from the snack rack that one time. Yep, it is kinda funny to see some of the people in this thread going on about how they think there's something wrong with the quiet person, and they try to get them involved in a conversation as if they're doing them a service. But like I'm being quiet because I don't want to be in this conversation or I don't have anything of substance to contribute. I hate when they follow it up with a command to smile. Why are you quiet? Smile. I used to work with a guy who would just randomly come up to me and say stuff like, are you okay? Why don't you ever smile? When I'd be in the middle of whatever task I was doing. I'm like, bro, I'm just trying to work. Leave me alone. Who walks around with a smile on their face 24/7, especially at work. And I barely ever worked the same shifts as this guy, so I didn't know him at all, which made it even more awkward. It makes me want to punch some people in the face. It's just horrible, and I feel like some people do this just to scratch their ego. Smile? I had a colleague basically say this to me, give us a smile, so I said give us a joke, then he laughed. Which stole the top 15 decibels of my voice. If you can retrieve them, I'll give you a reward. Fork, how though? Were you asleep? Will you tell me what happened to Siri? Draw sword. Off to the great unknown. Witcher fan spotted. Pull out the silver sword. They're monsters. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. I always liked a wise man speaks because he has something to say. A fool speaks because he has to say something. I learned this the hard way as a kid. Takes one to know one. I'm gonna write this down real quick. Real G's move in silence like lasagna. Why are you so loud? I am so stealing this one. My diplomatic version is, I'm just more of a listener, but I know that makes some people uncomfortable. Does it make you uncomfortable? It emphasizes that I am actively listening while putting them on the spot like they did me, and it de-escalates the conversation stakes as they try to prove how very comfortable they are. Took me about 2 decades to fall onto this response, though, and now I'm always very comfortable with the question. Once a coworker told a very unfunny joke. I didn't react. He said, you don't seem like you laugh very much. I replied, I laugh. He said, I've never seen it. I said, then be funnier. He stopped telling jokes around me. Introvert myself, but you can be an extrovert and not be loud. I am an extrovert. Having a conversation, to me, feels a little like passing a ball. In a situation where the conversation is going well, I finish my piece, and then I pass the ball. If I don't pass the ball, I feel very rude. To me, I feel like I'm hogging the conversation. I don't like being on the other side of it where I never get the ball. So with an introvert, you have someone who doesn't always want the ball. Maybe they're content to watch others play ball or to watch you dribble and bounce it around. Maybe they want nothing to do with the ball and wish the players would fork off somewhere else. So that's what I have to figure out. I would never ask, why are you so quiet? But my conversational style is driven by the urge to pass the ball. So I'd ask a question about the topic, what your opinion is, or if you have anything to add. Or I'd ask about you and how you're doing, or if there is anything you'd like to talk about. I don't know if this helps you, Opus, but as an actual adult extrovert, I'll give you my 2 cents. First, I don't ever ask why someone is so quiet. That's rude. However, I'll intentionally interact with people who look like they're uncomfortable or distancing themselves from others. I want everyone at the party, group event, dinner, whatever to have a good time. I was a shy kid with an inferiority complex, and I don't ever want someone that I'm socialized with to feel that way. If I see someone hanging back, I'll go talk to him. I'll ask questions that get him talking about himself. If after a few minutes I get a vibe that he's perfectly happy just hanging around the edge of the group and doesn't really want to interact, I'll keep it brief and move on. It helps that my best friend and my very nice boss are introverts, and they've explained to me that there's a difference between being introverted versus shy versus socially awkward. The shy or socially awkward people seem to appreciate being approached individually or included in group conversations. I always make sure to ask them questions if we're standing around in a circle talking, but they never have a chance to contribute. Introverts, on the other hand, don't have the energy to engage with lots of people or for a long period of time. With people who I know are introverts, I'll ask if they're doing okay, if they want to leave, if they need a wingman to help them exit graciously, if they'd like me to sit with them for a while, or if they'd rather be left alone, if they want to or a run to the snack table or to refill drinks. I think there is a common misconception that introverts are rude and standoffish. It's hard for some people to be social, and that's perfectly maybe just a smile and a friendly I don't know, that's just the way I am should work. I was in a long relationship with someone who could not stand silence and would never stop talking. This resulted in a complete breakdown of communication because what was being said was always filler and never quality. I speak when there's something to say and expect to be listened to. Some people speak as a performance and don't understand why others don't perform the same way. When there's constant talking, information is not exchanged because talking just becomes constant empty noise. Not many extroverts answering, so I'll put my 2 cents in. As an extrovert, I'm fairly easy to read in a group setting. You can tell when I'm having a good time, or tired, or even bored. It's fairly obvious when I'm not interested in the conversation because I stop engaging. Introverts are harder to read, especially after a few hours of hanging out. They could have been interested at the beginning of the night, but now it's been for hours and they're starting to wane, or they're not. Who knows? I like to check in to make sure they're okay. I try not to use "why are you so quiet" as a question, but it does come out of my mouth sometimes as a "why are you so quiet?" Most of the time I try to ask something along the lines of like, "We're not boring you, are we?" And yes, my introverted friends have answered, "I'm thinking about heading home. My energy's spent." Or "This conversation is boring. I'm waiting till you all finish," while browsing on their phones. However, I really only do this in group setting of like 10 or more people, since at that point it's easy for some introverts to get lost in the shuffle. But honestly, I know some talkative introverts. They are relatively talkative for a few hours, then have to leave because they're drained. I don't know many introverts who sit in a corner and just stare at everyone. Some do, but that's because they're shy or anxious, not because they're introverted. But the misconceptions about extroverts online is insane. I'm an extrovert who can go all night and straight into day if there's a party going on. I'm usually one of the last to leave and love talking to people. I can talk one-on-one with someone for hours. I've been on the phone with a friend 10 hours before and it's happened multiple times. However, I also love being alone. I find it relaxing to sit in silence and read or scroll Reddit. I love playing single-player games and hate multiplayer ones. The quarantining didn't bother me one bit even though I only saw family a few times this year. I can be loud in certain situations, but people make fun of me for being Daria because my voice is so monotone most of the time. And I don't hate introverts, they just experience the world differently than I do. Introversion and extroversion are not the same as noisy and quiet. It is entirely possible to be a quiet extrovert. Yeah, and it's also possible to be a social introvert. I don't have any problem with socializing, going to parties, meeting new people. It's just that I need to be alone to recharge my batteries. And if I socialize too much, then I become quiet because I don't have the emotional energy to be social anymore. I just came to say, please stop asking people why they're quiet. They're shy or nervous or worried or something. Ask them a question they can answer. Like, what do you think? Or did you see? But enough about me. How are you finding? What did you do at the weekend? What have you planned for this weekend? How's your dog doing? You made a mistake asking Reddit this question. We're all introverts. Not really. There's also extroverts who just have horrible anxiety. Brew, extroverts use Reddit. Reddit is a massive, mainstream website now. Everyone and their mother is on here. I had an uncle who was like that. One day he went to a barbershop with my dad, and when the barber asked my uncle how he wanted his haircut, he replied in absolute silence.